Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind the scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How you all doing today? Today I'm doing wonderful. And of course, one of the reasons is that I have such a fantastic guest. This gentleman's name is Robert L. Snow. And Robert is an author of quite a few books. But besides that, he served for 38 years at the Indianapolis Police Department and he retired in 2007 with the rank of captain. He has been a publishing writer for over 30 years with over 100 articles and short stories published in such magazines as Playboy, Reader's Digest, and National Enquirer, and others. In addition, he has had 15 books published. Now, amongst all his books that look super interesting, one of the ones that I just can't wait to speak to him about is one of his books called Portrait of a Past Life Skeptic, The True Story of Police Detectives' Reincarnation. And as you know, um, I'm a hypnotherapist. I've had a lot of experience with past life regression. And of course, this subject to me is it's it's still like a big question mark, an open door. Uh, for all the answers we have, there's so many other questions that don't have any answers. But anyway, let me get Robert on. How are you doing today, Robert?
Fine, fine. Thank you for having me on your show.
On the contrary, my pleasure. And Robert, even though we spoke briefly before we started recording about your experience, I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests was, obviously, you had this experience later on as an adult where you discovered a reincarnation. But before we get to that, did you ever have any type of paranormal experience at all, either as a child or an adult?
No, not a thing. It's
Nothing.
interesting about writing this book. I didn't have a single thing when I wrote this book. Then a lot of really, I would almost say bizarre things happened to me while I was writing the book.
Really?
Interesting enough, once I wrote the book and got it finished, nothing happened after that. Like it was just a phase when I was writing the book. I would have just some really, and as we'll talk about later, but some bizarre things happen. Really, I mean, so bizarre you can't really find an explanation for them. But again, it only happened when I was writing the book. Once the book was written and published, it stopped, and it hasn't had anything happened anything since.
Well, how long were you writing the book? What was the length of time that
It,
you were
it
having
took
these?
it took about a year.
Okay.
Most books take about a year to write.
Okay.
Once you get a contract.
Okay. So, and let's. I mean, you served obviously for many many years as a police officer. So, and we talked about that, like, as a police officer, you're trained to observe, and what you're interested in is facts, hard evidence. Like you said, this is also what's admissible if you go to court for any reason with a case. So, can you go back to how you ended up being hypnotized?
Well, I've been actually, like you told you in the introduction, I'm a writer, and I've been a writer
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of years. My bio needs to update. I have 18 books
Oh,
published
okay.
now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I know I haven't updated my bio online. I probably should,
Okay. And what
but
was it part of a
pretty
research? Was
soon.
that it? Were
But
you researching a book, or how did that happen?
no, no. But part of being a writer is you also have to be a reader. You can't
Yes.
just sit and write. You have to read a lot. You have to read not just things in your genre, but in everything. Because this is the way you see when you read something, you see, boy, this writer really handled this real well. You want to see, then you want to analyze writing. How did he or she do this? So you'll
Mm-hmm.
do it in your own writing. So I read from all areas. So I used to belong to a lot of different book clubs. Well,
Okay.
one of the book clubs had a book called Coming Back by Dr. Raymond Moody.
Yes, I'm
And
more familiar
it
with that.
sounded, yeah, it was seemed like kind of interesting books. I ordered it as part of the book club, and I sat down and read it. And it was a real kind of thin book. I read it all one night, matter of fact. And but it was an interesting book about he had a friend who was a psychologist who did past life regression, and she talked Dr. Moody, he had done previous research in near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So she talked him into being regressed, and he went back to I think 8 different lives, and he talks about in the book, and it's very colorful and very interesting about the book. But these past lives she supposedly hypnotized and regressed him to. But at the end of the book, he really when he tries to think what it is, he hedges, and he said he doesn't really know what this was. He wasn't really convinced that this is past life. He wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, or
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind dredging up old movies and things he'd read. And that's
Right.
basically how I thought to read the book. I thought, yeah, this sounds fun, but it's not real. It's just your subconscious mind dredging up old memories and fixing and putting them together into a story. So I didn't
Right.
think too much about it. I went on to reading. Well, I was at a party. It was a police department party. My wife was a police detective also, and she worked in child abuse. And they worked at the Child Advocacy Center, which is the police, prosecutor, child protective service. But anyway, they had a big party, a big
Mm-hmm.
Christmas party. So I was there, and I was just making small talk with a woman who's worked department, the psychologist who worked at the police department. We were just making small talk about movies we'd seen, and then we talked about books she read. I remembered Coming Back, and I mentioned it to her that I had read this book about the psychologist and Coming Back, and she asked what I think of the book. Well, I didn't know at the time that the psychologist she used to pass life regression and did it a lot. And so
Okay.
I basically told her I thought it was a lot of rubbish. I thought it was just fanciful, wishful thinking from people who don't want to think they die and then nothing happens. That people who want to blame their troubles in their present life on a past life, telling us bad karma from past lives and this kind of thing. I
Right.
basically. Man, and it's toward the end of the party, and I've been drinking. I probably got a little obnoxious, to tell you the truth. And I was really putting down reincarnation, not realizing that she used it very regularly. Well,
Okay.
I think I got on her nerves a little bit because basically she dared me. So if you think it's so silly, try it. And you see what you think. And at first I said, no, I'm not doing this. That's silly. And finally got to the point, oh, you're scared. Nah, you don't want to ask a man if police officer about they're scared. Of course they're going to say no. So anyway, she finally gave me a number of a friend who did a regression therapy and said, here, try it and see what you think. And I'm not sure why I did it. I agreed that I'd do it. But then the next day, you get you're more clear, you're sobered up, more clear-headed. I thought, I'm not doing this. That's silly. But it seemed like that from then on, I would run into this lady, the psychologist, every day it seemed like. And every time I'd see her, she'd ask me, had you made the appointment? Have I made the appointment with her yet? And every day I'd have some other, make some excuse. But, oh, I've been to see, I got meetings, But and I swear I never saw this woman once every 6 months before this. It seemed like after I saw her every day, it's like I'd see her in the hallway and say, oh, God, there she is, I know I'm going to have to make some excuse. So finally, I got tired of it, and I said, well, and then I was kind of irritated about it and kind of tired. So I thought, well, I'm just going to make an appointment. I'm going to go there. I'm going to cooperate 100% with this woman, the person she referred me to, and I'm going to show her how much baloney this all is, how this is stupid, it doesn't work. So
Uh.
I ended up calling a lady. It was Dr. Mary Ellen Griffith. She's also a psychologist, and I made the appointment. So I thought, well, and I asked her if I could bring a tape recorder along. I want the recorder to be able to show the police department psychologist how this is all. See, I did it. Nothing happened. It's stupid. It's just the whole thing's stupid. So I went. That's basically how I got talked into doing past life regression.
Oh boy.
Well, anyway, after I need to say I was a little bit nervous because of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we had worked with the police department had worked with hypnosis before this. Well, I knew what hypnosis was. We had worked with it before, and we really hadn't had good experiences with it. What we used it for is at the time they were hypnotizing women who had psychological problems, and
Mm-hmm.
the psychologist would supposedly take them back to the past in this life, not in their past life,
Right.
and they would remember being molested or being abused.
Right.
And, but unfortunately, in a number of cases, this wasn't what happened. What happened was a psychologist guided them into saying these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. That's a
It
problem. That
turned
is a
out
problem. Yeah.
we had one celebrating case. This lady's dad was a minister, and she claimed she remembered him holding her mom holding her down when her dad raped her, and
Wow.
how she'd had to have an abortion because she got pregnant by her dad and all.
Wow.
And it all sounded realistic. Her dad got fired from the church and what have you. So anyway, they finally took her to the doctor, examined her, and she was still a virgin.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of those cases where that hypnosis it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
so needless to say, we looked at hypnosis with a very, I don't know.
Sure, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
it
but
was a
yeah,
very
right. It's only
cautious.
also as good as a hypnotherapist. Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
So I went to see Dr. Riddle, and she was a very nice lady, very nice, very gracious. She asked me if I had any problems I would work on. I told her no. I just interesting to try. She didn't have any problem with that. So I basically sat down. We talked for a little bit. And she told me, she said, close your eyes. So I closed my eyes, and we started talking. She asked me to tell her something about my college graduation. So
Okay.
I told her my college graduation. She asked me to tell her about something that happened in high school, in grade school. And, I could see what she was doing, I thought at the time that she sure would be a very good interrogator because I could anticipate what her next question is going to be. And you don't believe me as an interrogator, you don't want the person to ever be able to anticipate what the next question could be. But I could see she would
Yeah.
take me further back into my life.
Okay.
But again, I had tape recorder going, and I was cooperating. I said I decided I was going to do everything she asked me to do, so I could show the police department psychologist how silly it was. So anyway, finally we go back further back in life. And she wanted to ask about what got to have her very earliest memory and this type of thing. So then finally she said, okay. She said, no. She says, I'm sitting with my eyes closed, and she said, okay, I want you to picture a balloon. Now I was sitting there, and the light was coming in the window to my right, and I could see a purple blob, with the light coming through my eyes. And I thought, yeah, I can see a purple balloon. I'm trying to pay, but again, I knew it's just a light coming through the window. So anyway, she tells me, well, get into the balloon, and said, we're going to take off. So I'm cooperating. I'm trying to be 100% cooperative, so I can show the person how silly it is. Well, I'm cooperating. I'm in the balloon. She said, okay, then come on, we're going to go up. Okay, so we're going, because you said we're going to go, you're going to imagine yourself taking off. So I'm trying to imagine myself taking off. So she talked about we're traveling along, and all this. She said, okay. She says, do you see the lights down below? Now, interesting enough, out of the bottom of my eyes, I could see what looked like little points of light. Now, I assumed it was just a reflection off the floor at the moment. I assumed that's all it was, but I could see the little points of light down the bottom of my eyes. But again, I figured it had to be a reflection off the floor. So anyway, she said, okay. She says, you see the lights down below? And I said, yeah. She says, well, let's take the balloon down. She said, take the balloon down. Well, nothing happened. She said, just go ahead and land. Well, nothing happened. But I'm thinking, this is her daydream, not mine. I'm not going to make anything happen that I don't see really happen. I'm not going to imagine something just for her, to her benefit. So anyway, she asked me to land about 5 or 6 times. And nothing happened. So finally, she said, okay. She said, reach up. There's a control above you. Reach up and pull it. It'll take the balloon down. So we went through this another half dozen times. And again, nothing happened. Again, I wasn't going to imagine anything or do anything other than what I really saw or thing. So finally, I was surprised. She was a very, very patient woman, because we went through this at least a dozen times, and she didn't seem to at least slight bit miffed. So finally, she told me, she said, okay. She says, I tell you what, look up, see if you can imagine a mountain in your mind. So I'm trying to imagine a mountain. And then I thought, okay, I can imagine a mountain. She said, okay, we're going to take the balloon to a mountain. Now, I've been sitting here probably, by this time, 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
She
Okay.
had the hardest couch I have ever sat on. I don't think she wanted her patients to stay more than an hour, because you couldn't on this couch. I'm uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm in a little bit of pain. I'm sitting on this couch along my hands. I haven't moved. And my hands on the lap. So anyway, she said, okay, imagine landing a mountain. For some reason, in my mind, I could actually see a balloon landing on a mountain. I wasn't trying to do this, but I could see it. I thought, well, okay, I can see the land. She said, okay, do you see a cabin there? So I tried to imagine a cabin there. And sure enough, I could see a log cabin there. But interestingly enough, when I saw it, the logs are going vertical rather than horizontal.
Wow.
And I had a reader write me later on, tell me that was the French way of building log cabins.
Okay.
And anyway, she said, now go into the cabin and go inside and see what you see. Well, I didn't see anything. Again, she says, what do you see? Well, I didn't see anything. Again, this is her daydream. I don't see anything. She said, okay, now imagine a big meal. So I'm still trying to cooperate. I'm thinking to myself, what an idiot I am for doing this. I'm thinking, I must be a real idiot. I've got myself talking and doing this, and I'm sitting there feeling really silly, but I'm still trying to cooperate. She said, okay. She said, picture a meal, and we pictured a meal. She said, okay, so I'm going to take you out. Now I want you to, we're going to go down to a valley. She says, there's some steps. I'm going to count them.
Okay.
So she started this 10, this real long 9. It's like kind of like when you stage.
Backwards.
I'm thinking, oh God, this is not. Oh God, this is like a stage hypnotist. So, you're getting very sleepy. I'm taking all my willpower out of my eyes and say, this is stupid. Let's quit this. But I didn't. But I still wanted to prove to the police department psychology how stupid this all was. So she's counting. I'm walking down the steps of the valley. But funny enough, when she got to one, something really bizarre happened.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I was in a valley. Now, I wasn't seeing this valley in my mind. I wasn't imagining this valley. I was in a valley. Now, I knew I was still sitting in her office because I could feel the couch. I could feel my buttocks had gone to sleep already from sitting on the couch. My hands hurt. But at the same time, I was in a valley, and it was so vivid and clear. I could see leaves blowing on the trees. And interesting, I could feel that breeze blowing in my face. I assumed it was just the air conditioning in her office, but I could feel a breeze, and I could look at things. I could see fine detail. I could see the veins in the leaves on bushes next to me. It was. I mean, now I knew at the moment what happened. I mean, I wasn't stupid. I figured out I had been hypnotized. I said, interesting enough, before I went there, I didn't think it could happen. I thought I was too strong-willed. I didn't think I could be hypnotized. Really didn't. But I knew that moment. I knew what happened. I said, Bob, this is hypnosis. You've been hypnotized. And tell you the truth, it was kind of like when you go to Disney World or some of these amusement parks. They have some really great rides, and they're very realistic. But they're not real. It's just
Exactly.
and that's what I thought this was. This is not real. It's hypnosis, and you've been hypnotized. But it was kind of fantastic. It was kind of like the coolest ride you ever see at an amusement park. So I kind of wanted to go along with it because I thought this is really cool. So anyway, I'm in this valley and I'm walking along, and I can feel the breeze, and I can see the leaves. It was high summer, and I'm looking around. There's a little brook, like water running to my right there. And she said, "Well, look down, describe what you have on." I looked down, and I could see 2 bare, hairy legs, and I was wearing some kind of very dirty, matted fur. And I was carrying a tree limb in my I think it's my left hand. It was a big piece of a tree limb. Now, I know what caveman. Everybody's seen movies and books. You know what a caveman looks like. And I knew what this was. I thought, oh God, Bob, you think you look like you're thinking Tarzan. So I'm describing it to her and everything. And then something else, as I'm walking along, I'm describing myself to her, what I'm wearing and where I'm at. And then another bizarre thing happened. Suddenly, it was like there was a door to back my mind open, and little facts started jumping out. Facts I didn't know. As Bob Snow, I didn't know him, but this person I was in did know him. I said, I live here. I didn't. It's funny. I started saying things before I knew I was going to say them. I mean, usually, when you say things, you get a half second to realize what you're going to say before you say.
Right. Exactly.
I started spilling words out before I was going to say them. That's where I live here. I said, there's a cave up on the hill. It's where I live. I pointed up that way, and I remember thinking, sorry, where'd that come from? I did because I didn't mean to say it.
So in other words, you were retelling the story in first person, as in
exactly.
I.
Exactly.
Okay.
Again, I still figured it was just the hypnotism's all. But it was still it was kind of bizarre. She said, "Okay," she said, "Go to where you live." Now again, rather than walking there, it was just like a moment of gray fog. Then I was at the cave entrance. But the funny part about the cave entrance, when I started to step in, the fellow who lived there was not very hygienic, and I had this awful smell when I walked in the cave. It was awful unhygienic smell. In this, it was just almost gag you for a second. You could smell. He did not live clean. He did not have a clean cave. He did not live. It was really a nasty smell. So anyway, we went on into the cave, and I described it to her, and she said, "Okay, so I want you to go to your death." She said, "Go to your death and tell me what you see." Well, again, there's a moment or two of gray fog, and all of a sudden, I'm not inside the guy's body. I'm floating above it. I'm about 10 feet above him. He's laying on the cave floor. He's a little skinny little man, and he's huddled up under some fur. He's just hacking, coughing something terrible. You can see every time he coughed, it really hurt. And he was dying. Obviously, he was dying. So I told her that. She said, "Okay." She says, "Go outside the cave." And this time I'm not walking. I'm floating. I'm floating about 10 feet above.
Okay.
And I go outside the cave, and she said, And again, before she asked me anything, I say anything, all of a sudden I just blurted out. I said, "This was a bad life." I said, "I didn't have anyone this life. This was a bad. I had nobody. I was all by myself. Had no one." She said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay." She said, "Look up, Bob. Do you see a light?" I looked up, and sure enough, there's a big light above the valley. She said, "Go into the light." I said, "Okie dokie." Again, I think this is like an amusement park ride.
Uh-huh.
It's really cool. So I go. She said, "Now I want you to go to a life when you had someone, when there was someone in your life." So okay. So I go into the light, and there's 4 or 5 seconds again of gray fog, and all of a sudden I see myself. I'm on a city street, but it's not from today because I can see there's gas lights and horse-drawn carriages.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around and figuring it's probably the late 1800s. It looked like.
Okay.
But the interesting part was it was a summer day, and I could feel the sun beating down real hard on me. Now I'm inside of a closed office, but I could feel the heat coming down on me.
Okay.
So I'm walking along, and I'm describing the scene to Dr. Griffith. It's a city street. Looks like I can see gas lights and I can see horse-drawn carriages. And he says, "Okay." He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to meet someone." And so she said, "Well, go ahead to go meet the person." So there's a beautiful blonde lady in a red dress, and I meet her, and we walk down to a outdoor cafe.
Okay.
And she asked what we ordered. I told her I ordered a glass of wine, and my companion ordered some kind of touch of water. So anyway, we talked about this, and she said, go 5 years ahead. So I went to the 5 years, and I see myself staying in an apartment hallway, and I'm arguing with a woman about money. We're having this real vigorous argument, and I just storm away, and I walk into this other room, and it's an artist studio. It's a room that's one wall is solid windows. One wall is solid windows. There's a big skylight on top. And I'm looking around, and there's dozens and dozens of paintings hanging everywhere. And again, like with the caveman, I suddenly realized, I didn't realize it, but the person I was in realized that was my job. I was an artist. I painted for a living. And so anyway, so we went through this life, and she said, "Fine." He said, "Go to your death." I said, "Okay." She said, "Go to your death." I again, a couple minutes of fog, and I went to my death. And I saw myself rising up on my body, and I'm through the roof of this building. And now everybody's seen ghost movies on TV. That's what ghosts do. I knew what this was. This is just a ghost movie I'd seen sometime. Now I come up up through the building, and I looked around. I was in a huge city. There were lights for miles and miles in all directions. Now, the interesting part is people think when you're hypnosis, you're under control of the hypnotist. They see these stage shows where
Right.
people cluck like chickens. That's not true. Under hypnosis, you still know exactly what's going on.
Yes, you do.
And you have free will. Because Dr. Griffith said, "Okay, go into the light," but I didn't. I saw myself flying through some woods. I could tell it was late fall because it was a real cold, chilly night. But the trees still had their leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she kept saying, "Go into the light," and I wouldn't do it. Instead, I went to this building, and it was like a big mansion.
Okay.
I'm looking in the window on the second or third floor, and there's a room, and there's a big fire in the fireplace. And above the fireplace is one of my paintings. It's a still life. And I told Dr. Griffin, "No, I don't want to go yet. I want to see one of my paintings before I go." And so I described the painting to her, the still life painting to her. And then I finally went to the light, which I thought was kind of interesting because she kept telling me about half the time to go to the light, and I wouldn't do it. But she goes, again, I thought it was interesting that people think you have complete control, but you're really under hypnosis. You can control what you want to do.
Yes,
so anyway,
exactly.
So then she said to me, she says, "Okay, now I want you to go to the life he lives as a woman." And I remember thinking to myself then, laughing, thinking, "Yeah, that's going to happen. We'll do a life as a woman." But anyway, so there was 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog, and then sure enough, it's actually a young girl. I'm in a young girl's body.
Okay.
And again, this was a thing like the caveman. This was a life back in ancient Greece, and nothing could really be verified about it. But there's enough. And this one, I saw a person in this life who I know in my present life.
Okay.
I saw my stepdaughter. But interesting enough, she was the age then she was when her mother and I got married, not the age she was when I did the regression.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I went through this life as a Greek woman. And I worked at a temple as a young girl. Then I got, then I got the thing about there was a requirement at the temple that you had to be a virgin to work at this temple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a little girl, which was my stepdaughter. Needless to say, they put me out of the temple and gave me away to a man. And so anyway, so I go to live with this man, and he dies real soon afterwards. So now I'm here. I'm a woman in ancient Greece with a young girl. And so I take my daughter back to the temple and give her away, got to give her to the temple to have to keep, because I know how much each of my life would be if I didn't have a little girl hanging on me.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting part about the regression is I felt this tremendous guilt. I was trying to explain to Dr. Griffin how this was really a good thing I was doing. It wasn't a bad thing to abandon my daughter. That was really a good thing. Knowing all my time, in my mind, I had this tremendous guilt about
Okay.
leaving her there. But I
Okay.
did. I left there and I took off, and I went to a village by a big body of water, and ended up drowning. That's how I died, because she took me to my death. And the
Okay.
interesting part about the drowning, I could taste salt water.
Yes.
As I'm drowning, I could actually taste salt in my throat. So anyway, so after this story was over, she said, "Okay, Bob, now I want you to go to the most recent life you lived. I want you to go to the life you were before you were Bob Snow." So again, there's 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog, and suddenly I'm back in the artist body. I knew who it was. I'm back into the artist body again.
Okay.
But I'm in my studio and I'm painting a portrait. But interesting enough, it's a portrait of a hunchback woman.
Okay.
She's got a very prominent hunch on her back, very prominent hunchback. And I'm just finishing the portrait. The interesting part was the regression was so vivid. I could see every single brushstroke in this painting, every brushstroke. And I was just finishing the painting up. And then so then I went to a couple other scenes in this life as an artist. And because Dr. Griffith would always say after I told what happened, she'd say, "Go 5 years forward, go 5 years forward." So one of these times, just before after she said, "Go 5 years forward," and I was in the gray fog, all of a sudden I had this emotion. Well, I felt like I wanted to cry. I
Okay.
said, she died. They said she died. The doctor said she died of a blood clot. And I had no idea who I was talking about. I didn't know who
Okay.
this woman was, but I knew whoever she was a very, very important woman to this artist. Because again,
Okay.
I remember thinking to myself how silly this was. I actually felt like I wanted to cry, and I had no idea what I was talking about.
Right. The emotion was
But
there.
at that moment, after I said that, my recorder I brought along clicked off. I opened my eyes, and that was it. And the regression was over. And, and now I'm feeling really kind of foolish. I went there so sure of myself about
Uh-huh.
how stupid all this stuff was. How nothing's going to happen. I didn't think I could hypnotize. And now I would tell you I was flustered because not because because of mainly because it was so vivid. I mean the regression just wasn't clear. It was as clear as any reality I'd ever seen. But
Mm-hmm.
now Dr. Griffin's telling me about, have you seen anything that this life would apply to yours and all this. And I couldn't think of it. I'm just too flushed at the moment. I had no idea what had just happened. And I just mumbled something to her about this, too soon. I wanted to get out of there, to tell you the truth. I had no idea what happened. Because,
Okay.
in life, especially like being a police officer, you're trained to handle situations. You've got training, you've got experience on how to handle things. Well, I had no training or experience how to handle this.
Oh.
I didn't know what had just mumbled. And so I mumbled some excuse to her before I got out of there. And I went to sit in my car. And I took my car probably for maybe 20 minutes or so afterward, trying to think what just happened. Not because of the instance up, but just how vivid. It didn't seem like made up stories, because what I thought it would be if you told anything, it'd be your subconscious mind dredging.
And this wasn't what you had been expecting to
No,
experience
not
at
at
all.
all. And no, wasn't expected at all, because it was so incredibly vivid. And I kept trying to figure out what could this have been. I can't imagine what this could be. So I sat there for about 20 minutes trying to, and I finally just said, Bob, again, this is simply hypnosis. Those work. These were just memories from your life. Somewhere you've seen a picture of the Hunchback. You've seen this painting. You've seen the painting, maybe the still life over the fireplace. You're dredging up these memories and reordering them into a story to make the psychologist happy. So all you did. That's why I tried to convince myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I went home and tried to convince myself of that. But days and weeks following, I just simply couldn't. I could not stop thinking about this regression. It was just so vivid. And actually, for the first couple of years after regression, if I closed my eyes, I could still see the painting. I could see the scenes clear, still vivid. I could
Yes.
still see every brushstroke of that painting for the first couple of years after the regression. And anyway, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I would think about it probably 50 times a day.
Wow.
And then I started dreaming about it. And it started to bother me because as a police officer, I've seen people who have obsessions. And
Uh-huh.
believe me, serious obsessions seldom turn out well for people. If
Yes.
you allow yourself to be captured and controlled by an obsession, it usually ends up bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I had to do something. I finally realized I had to do something about this because I could not stop thinking about it. I mean, every single day I'd think about it constantly. So I decided what I need to do, I need to find one of these two paintings. I mean, how many paintings of a hunchback woman could there be? Come on. I thought that should be easy. That should be easy. You know, the still life might be a little harder, but I figured the hunchback wouldn't be easy to find. I figured if I could find one of these paintings, then
Mm-hmm.
I would find who painted, when this big exhibit, it all come to me. Oh yeah, Bob, you saw that 4 years ago, and again you read a little about the artist, and that's where this all come from.
Mm-hmm.
So my plan. Now this was in 1992. This was for the internet, and so
Okay.
you couldn't get online and type a search engine and say
Right.
hunchback woman painting.
Back then it was legwork.
Yeah, I had to go to the library. So I went to the Indiana Public Library, and I thought I'd just start looking through their out on my lunch hour. I start looking through the art books, and sure enough, I'll find one or two paintings that still life. I didn't realize that the Indiana Public Library had hundreds of
Really?
art books.
Well, I
Oh
know that in
yeah,
some points in like in Italy or certain places, hunchbacks were considered like good luck, but I didn't realize like what you're saying that there's a lot of them, pictures as far as
yeah,
paintings.
yeah. I figured how hard could it be to find it? But again, in these days there was no search engines. You had to get
Yeah.
new legwork and go through the books yourself. So anyway, I started going through it. I took a yellow pad and I started writing down the books I looked through to keep myself from doubling back. And I went through it took me months, but I went through every single book at the public library, every art book, didn't find it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that started bugging me a little bit. I thought, wait a minute now, Bob, you couldn't just dream this up. You had to have seen this somewhere. And so what I started doing, I started going around my local area talking to art dealers and saying,
Okay.
I figured, well, you talk to them. And I found something interesting at this time. In 1992, there was no registry of paintings anywhere. You couldn't say, I want this painting. There was nowhere, and like nowadays, you could get on the internet and find it. In those
Exactly.
days, the only thing you could do was to start calling art dealers and say, do you know where this painting's at? Have you seen this painting? And
Wow.
so I visited probably 2 dozen art galleries, and again, no one had heard or seen the painting or knew about it. And so, and so then I decided, well, maybe I need to do some investigation of what happened. What happened was under hypnosis. So I went to a New Age bookstore, undercover, needless to say, and, and bought a couple books on past life regressions. So I
Uh-huh.
find out what happened. And matter of fact, I even tried self hypnosis, which, by the way, is much more difficult than people think it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, much more difficult because I read a number of scripts for doing this, which
Mm-hmm.
seemed very similar to Dr. Griffith. Dr. Griffith was big into imagery. Tell me this. Tell me all
Mm-hmm.
this. Very much imagery, and I tried it probably a dozen times. It was very difficult to get yourself into that, but only twice I could feel myself getting ready to go. Just started going into the state I had been in Dr. Griffith's office, but it only lasted maybe a couple of seconds.
Okay.
And both times I saw the number 1917. Then like a balloon popping, I'd be out. Twice that I'd see the number 191. Now I didn't know if that was an address, number, money, or what it was. That's
Okay.
one thing I could do. So finally, in desperation, I even went back to Dr. Griffith for a second session. I thought maybe if I went back,
Uh-huh.
I could go back to Artist Life and get some kind of reference to where I knew this information from. So I went back and actually had a second session with her. Now, again, she took me back some interesting past lives, but I couldn't get to the Artist Life. Every time she tried to get to the Artist Life, nothing had happened. She tried to get me to go to it, nothing. Now I went some other lives, but never. Every time I went to the artist, nothing happened. And we're done. She says, "Well, that's because you know everything you need to know." Now, at the moment, I didn't think so. It turned out she was right. At the moment, I didn't really think so. I thought, well, that doesn't help a bit. Doesn't help a bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, now I was in charge. I was a captain of the Indianapolis Police Department. I was in charge of homicide for a number of years. Now in Indianapolis, when I was in charge of homicide, we had an 83% clearance rate, which is very good. We solved
Mm-hmm.
83% of murder. That still means that 17% of the murders every year go unsolved. And
Okay.
what you do with these, you put them on the shelf. You don't just get rid of them. You keep them in case new evidence would come up. But
Right.
they're basically come cold cases.
Right.
And I assume that's what was going to happen with this. I thought, Bob, there's not. What else can you do? There's nothing else you can do. Let it go. Let the case go. Don't worry about it. I mean, you've tried everything you do. Put it on the shelf. Now, if new evidence would come up, you could reopen the case. It's not
Right.
it's not closed, but it's deactivated. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said don't think about it no more. I'm not going to do anything. Of course, that didn't work very long. I mean, I still kept thinking about it all the time, regardless of what I did. But anyway, a couple months after this, it was going toward my wife's anniversary, and she wanted to take a trip somewhere on our anniversary, somewhere we knew that was been. So one day she called me at work and she says, "What do you think about New Orleans?" Well, that sounds like fun. I'd never been to New Orleans, neither had she. And it was springtime. We were married in the last April. I thought, well, that'd be great. We'll go to New Orleans in last April. Be kind of a fun vacation. So we
Mm-hmm.
did. We went to New Orleans and we spent a week there. We did all the. She's a big history buff, so we did a lot of historical stuff around there. And we went to Bourbon Street at nighttime. Heard the bands and did some drinking and all that. Anyway, the last day we were there, our plane didn't leave till the evening, so we had a whole day there. But for our plane left, so I
Right.
suggested one window shopping in the French Quarter because
Okay.
we had gone down there at night to go to the bars to see the bands, and there were all kind of little cool stores in there, but they were all closed time we went down in the evening. So we decided to go window shopping. So we went window shopping in various stores, but never to play various places, antique stores and historic memorabilia stores. Anyway, we finally got to Royal Street. Royal Street, and this was 1992 still, or first part of 93. We went down to Royal Street was all art galleries. The
Okay.
whole street this time was art galleries. So we started going through the art galleries. And, oh yeah, they have some beautiful paintings. Some really very expensive too, very beautiful paintings. So
Uh-huh.
we started walking along, going one art gallery after another. We started, and I noticed as walking the street, the galleries are getting smaller, and the paintings more obscure. So we finally got down to the end of Royal Street. There was a little small art gallery. It was 2 floor. Walked in. It said modern art upstairs. Now I've never been a fan of modern art. I never have. I always thought more traditional art.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife is though. She walked upstairs to see it, and I started walking along the wall, just look at the paintings. I didn't recognize any paintings, or I never heard of any of the artists. I'm not an art historian, so I don't know that much about it, but I never heard of any of these artists. So I'm walking along, and I'm getting to the corner, and there's a portrait on an easel there. And I'm walking by, and I give it a glance, and it's like I ran into a glass wall. I turn around, and it's a portrait of the Hunchback Woman.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Now, as a police officer, I've been in lots of scary
Oh,
situations. I've been in scary situations where I'm scared. I mean, I'm scared. You're going after people who have killed people, hurt people, but but I have never been as scared as I was when I saw that.
you,
Because,
what are the
because
odds?
yeah, that was the point. That was the whole point. Come on. Now I've hunted for months for this painting,
Uh-huh.
and I'm thinking, what's the odds, Bob? You could look all these months for this painting,
Right.
and all of a sudden just stumble onto by accident or knowledge. No, no. So I'm staring at this painting, and I'm thinking, no, Bob. You want this? This looks like the painting. This is close. It's not the painting. It's not it. So I closed my eyes, and I told you during the first couple years I could still see him, and I closed my eyes, and I could see the painting I was painting, and opened my eyes,
Uh-huh.
and I really said, I probably stood there 5 minutes, and I was thinking, I'm probably not here. I'm probably in a nursing home somewhere. I'm slobbered on myself in a nursing. Well, you got your. I mean, I'm desperate. I'm looking for an explanation for this. Come on, these things happen on movies and books. They happen in the X-Files. They don't happen to real people. Come on, things like this do not happen to real people. They happen, like I said, in movies and science fiction books.
Oh
They don't
my
happen.
God.
What's the chances this could happen? What's the odds? Because let me tell you something. Police officers, we don't believe in coincidences because we very often find that any coincidence you run into an investigation is not a coincidence. It's
Right.
something someone made to happen, want to look like a coincidence. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that thought was scary because you're thinking, who could make this happen?
Right.
But
You're in
anyway,
another city.
yeah, I'm sort of I'm just grasping. Come on, there's got to be some way to explain this. How do I explain stumbling on this painting in a city 1,000 miles from my home? And what's the odds I could just imagine a painting and an identical one show up? It's not. The odds are way too much. So anyway, I'm looking at this painting for probably 5 minutes. I'm closing my eyes and I can see myself painting.
Oh
Yep.
my God.
Yep. And there's no way to say, I'm still wondering, maybe I've had a stroke, Bob. You're in a hospital bed somewhere. You just think, because again, I'm just grasping for a rational explanation for this. Anyway, I was there for probably 5 minutes during the painting. So finally, I guess when the salesman said, hot dog, he came over and said, I bet you're thinking how nice I'd look over your fireplace. And, this one,
And you're like, you have no idea.
A hunchback woman I don't know over my fireplace. So anyway, I kind of snapped back to reality, and I said, I don't recognize the artist. Who is the artist? He said, well, come here, I got a little bio on. So he took me over to the desk and got his bio out. It was J. Carroll Beckwith. Now, I looked at the thing. The first thing I saw was his date of birth and death. It was 1852 to 1917.
There's your
Yeah,
1917.
and immediately, again, my heart stumping, my heart is thumping in my chest, and I got electricity running on my arms. And I'm starting to read. I'm reading the bio, and it was a real short little bio, maybe 4 or 5 sentences. but I recognized four of the things I'd said during regression in his bio. And and I'm thinking, I'm grasping. I'm really grasping for some kind of situation. But anyway, I wrote that information down because I figured, well, now I can reopen this case. I can back to Indianapolis. I can look up Beckwith. I can check him out. I can find out where I know about him from this light. Now, finding this painting is really bizarre.
It
But
is. It
but I figured
is.
if I could find how I had known Beckwith from this life, that wouldn't explain everything, but it'd have to be more rational. That it's not. This is not a supernatural past life thing. This is a now thing. Now, but you think, what's the odds of him finding him? I was trying to logic tell myself, but look this way.
Yes.
People win Powerball, and the odds are 100, one in
Uh-huh.
300 million, and that's what the odds of me finding that painting. I figure, but people do win the
That's
Powerball. Don't they?
incredible.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'm trying to rationalize myself, Bob. This is an incredible thing to happen, but incredible things happen. They do happen. People win Powerball. It's a 1 in 300 million chance. So that's why I'm going to go back to Indianapolis, and I will research back. So I come back to Indianapolis. The next day, I'm down to the library, and I find out, interesting enough, there is practically no information about Beckwith. There's no books about him, no magazine article about him. The only thing you find is in a very large book by American authors. There'll be 2 or 3 sentences about him, basically saying he was a portrait painter who lived in New York City in the late 1800s, early 1900s, painted mostly portraits. There's nothing else. I mean, there was just practically no information on him. I couldn't believe it. I said, come on. I told the librarian, there's got to be more than this. And she said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you go up to the Art Museum library? They have a much better reference library on artists than we do. So
Okay.
that's a good idea. So I went up, and it's on the north side of Indianapolis, so I drove up there and went to and their librarian was able to find a little more about him. Not much more, but a little bit more. But interesting enough, the stuff she found, I think I found 5 more little confirmations of things I'd said. I remember saying that. And this is, it's one of these things, you can't, what I was starting to look for at the last there, I was starting to look for, let's find one thing I had said that was wrong. For example, Dr. Griffin asked me, what do you regret about your life? And I said, I regret that we didn't have children because my wife couldn't have children. And I thought, well, if Beckwith had children, then the whole thing's goofy. This is not a real memory because you remember having children. Sure to God, you remember having children,
Right.
And I said, for example, I saw myself ordering wine at the restaurant. Now, I was under the impression that men in the late 1800s drink whiskey. If they drink it, not men, very men drink wine. Or if he's a teetotaler, I thought, well, then it's all
Right.
bull. It's all some kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
So I kept looking for the disproving fact, but instead, so far I'd found 10 different facts that all were exactly what I'd said. But interesting enough, when I was up to the library, she said, "Oh, by the way, so we have a program from an art exhibit was held here of his work in Indianapolis." And I thought, hot dog! I knew it. Unfortunately, it was in 1911. The
Oh,
last exhibition, yeah. For a moment, I thought I had it solved. But anyway, I noticed that one of the references they found back was in a book about John Sargent, because again, they were close friends or old
uh-huh.
room. At the bottom is a footnote. Said this information came from the diaries of J. Carroll Beckwith, now kept at the National Academy of Design, New York City. So that's how I found about the diary. So I knew that he had a diary. And
Okay.
also it said some of the information came from an unpublished autobiography of Beckwith that he had written. And I thought, hot dog, Bob, this is what you got to do. You got to get a hold of those, and some way you'll be able to. I'll tell you what I was looking for. I wasn't looking to keep confirming proofs.
No, you were trying the contradiction. You were trying to find.
I was hoping to find one thing that I'd said that was wrong, and that way you say, well, this is not real memory. There's something goofy here. So anyway, I went home and I wrote a letter to the National Academy of Design in New York City about it, and they said, well, naturally, don't loan the diaries out; they're too fragile. But they have been microfilmed, and I could get it on an interlibrary loan. So I went back to the library and made an interlibrary loan for the diaries and his autobiography. Man. So anyway, about a week and a half later, they came. So I go down to the library to look at them. And unfortunately, Beckwith was a very avid diary keeper. He started his diary at age 19 and made an entry every day until the day
So
before his
that's a
death.
lot of material.
17,000 pages of
What?
diary. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I found 17,000. And now what do you do? Okay, yeah, I got
And you weren't
17.
kidding. There was enough
I got
material there. Whoa.
17,000 pages. But I thought, okay, Bob Job, I'll read his autobiography. Maybe that'll tell me something that would, I could find something that wasn't true. Unfortunately, he started his biography in the spring of 1970, and he was sick. He died of endocarditis, which is an infection of the heart valves. And part of the symptoms of that is you feel very weak. So at the last of his life, he couldn't stand up to paint anymore. So he decided to become a writer. And he started writing. He started writing new magazine articles and various other things. And he also started his autobiography. And unfortunately, he only got up to age 21 before he had to stop before he died. So it wasn't much. His autobiography wasn't much value.
Okay.
But anyway, I found out. So I thought, okay, Bob, what are you going to do? You got 9 spools of microfilm, 17,000 pages. So I thought, what I'll do, I'll just go through and just glance at a few pages. And I found a part in his diary that for some reason he'd taken out about 20 pages and typed them. I have no idea. He was an art student in France, and he went to Venice during his summer vacation. And so I was reading that. But again, all it did was confirm. He said in Venice, he lived on wine and burned eggs. And I thought, well, shit.
There's your wine drinking.
So anyway, it just got to the point, what am I going to do now? I thought, what am I going to do? So what I finally did is, of course, the problem is the microfilm, you can only keep for 2 weeks and you have to send it back. There's no way you could go through 17,000 pages in 2 weeks or anything. I didn't know what to do, to tell you the truth. What I eventually ended up doing is I had hard copies made of the diary, 17,000 pages.
I was going to say, that's a lot of pages.
Yes, it was. And I read every single page. It took me over a year to read it, but I read every single page. And what I did though before I ordered the diaries from New York, I got my tape back out and I sat down and listened to it, and I found out I wrote down anything that could be proved or disproved about Becca said about life, about not having children, about drinking wine, and I described myself, Dr. Griffith. I said I'm dressed really nice. I have a cane, but I said it's not really a cane. It's a fancy walking stick.
It's a walking
various
stick.
Things like that. Things you could prove or disprove.
Something like a cross-reference kind of thing that you could,
exactly. And so I sat down and I read every single page, and I had 28 things I could prove, and I eventually ended up proving all 28 of them.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
See.
I mean, and to tell you the truth, as I kept doing it, there was never anything huge. Most of them were little small things. Like in his diary, he said, "I got the present day of a walking stick." He mentioned having a walk stick 3 or 4 times. And so everything was small.
Robert, at what point in all of this did you start going from trying to disprove it? Because I know where you're coming from. You're like, I got to find the one thing that's going to let me off the hook with this entire thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
When was it that you realized this is not going to happen, and all of a sudden you're looking more for confirmation versus the disapproval?
Well, the one thing that started me leaning that way, it didn't quite turn me, but kind of started leaning me, is I found out on October 24th, 1888, his wife, the wife's name Bertha, had a really very serious miscarriage, and because of this, they couldn't have children.
Okay.
And I said that, and he makes in his diary a number of times how much he regrets not having children, but that they couldn't. And that's, that was things, you think, but not completely. What really turned me over was on December 5th, 1886. He writes in his diary. And I told you, at the very last regression, I said she died of a blood clot. The doctor said she died of a blood clot. And again, it was a woman so important to him, he wanted to cry.
Okay.
Well, I read his diaries, I know there's 2 women who do that. Either his wife, Bertha, who he loved dearly, or his mother.
Okay.
His mother was the only one who ever encouraged him to go into artwork. He always wanted to be an artist. His dad told him that's the best way you do it, starving to death, being an artist. His dad was a wholesale grocer and wanted him to go into the wholesale grocery business with him. Beckwith wanted to be an artist. Well, his mother bought him his first easel, his paintings. And she actually talked to father and let him go to New York and study painting in New York and in Paris. So, I mean, he just loved his mother dearly. So it had to be either, the only 2 women I could find in his life that he cared so much was about his mother and his wife. Well, in his diary, in December 5th, 1886, he writes that his mother was in church and had a stroke caused by a blood clot and died.
Oh, wow.
That was the one. That was probably what set me over the edge. And I thought, come on. What's the odds you could imagine? What's the odds you could make this up?
Exactly.
You can't. The odds are too big.
The significant woman and the cause of death.
Yeah, both. There were only 2 women. It had to be either Bertha or his mother, and his mother died of a blood clot.
That's incredible.
I mean, that did. I mean, the rest of the points, like him drinking wine, okay, that could happen. You could rationalize that out. You could rationalize that out. You could even rationalize the miscarriage of no children, maybe. But you couldn't rationalize this. There's no way you could imagine this. No way you could make this up and be right. You can't, and you're not going to be right 20. I mean, you can guess some stuff about Beckwith's life. For example, I saw him dying in the fall. I told you I went on the roof in the fall. Well, he died in October. I saw he was in a large city when he died. Well, he died in New York City.
Right.
But all these things, I remember when I found these things, I kept thinking, well, Bob, come on. A lot of people die in large cities, not just him.
Right. You were trying to
Every
think,
year.
yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the people who die every year die in the fall. So come on,
Yes.
this doesn't prove anything. This is just, this is just interesting. This is an interesting little thing. But when you got to the blood clots, like, come on, there's no way you can imagine this. There's no way you can make this up.
Yes.
I mean, and where would you think about it, where would that be recorded? Other than his diary, nowhere.
No, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what pushed. Now I've got a real problem though. You see, because okay, well, now that you realize it, what do you do with it?
Now, and you're thinking, and you're starting to think that was me, or
Yeah, okay. But what I do with this information? So I basically talked to my wife about it. My wife, I told you, she's a police detective also. She was a child abuse detective, and we talked about it. First, she thought it nuts. She really did. When I first told her about what I'd found, she really thought I was nuts. But it basically, so we talked about it, and basically she told me, she said, Bob, you read about him, you've seen a movie. I said, no, there are no books about him, no magazine articles, no movies. She said, yes, somewhere you've seen it. She said, I'll tell you what. She said, I will look into this. I will find where you saw the information about him. And actually, I was hoping she'd say that. I was kind of glad because she's one of the best detectives I've ever met. Extremely thorough detective, an excellent detective. She really is. And so I thought, great, because one of my biggest admonishments to all my detectives when I was in charge of homicide is don't get emotionally involved in your cases.
right.
When you get emotionally involved in your cases, you get tunnel vision. You really do. You can't see things on the periphery because you're so obsessed with getting this case. Now here I was. I'm sorry, I talked about this, and I was really emotionally involved in this case. And so I wanted a unbiased third party to look at everything I'd found, everything I'd done, to see have I missed something, have I got tunnel vision. So my wife said, I'll do it. So it took her several weeks, and she couldn't find anything. She didn't find a single thing more than I had already found. Nothing. But regardless of that, she still told me, okay, Bob. She basically said, okay, I can't find it. I don't know. Maybe something. This is amazing. But keep your mouth shut. Because you're a police captain. Police captains don't go espousing this sort of thing.
Yeah,
police
I can
captains
see.
don't go preaching past life. Keep your mouth shut. Take to the grave with you.
Uh-huh.
And and it's one of the things. And I thought about it, and I thought, oh God, The trouble was that so much of this information, like the Hunchback Woman, come to me just out of the blue. This wasn't the only time it happened. There are several other incidents. I didn't put them in the book because it sounded like you're driving the nail too hard. You keep putting all these things. But a couple other times, I had information about Beckwith that's dropped in my lap. For example, in his diary, a number of times he mentions I worked on my scrapbooks today, but him being so obscure, I could not find out where his scrapbooks are at.
Okay.
And so I was talking to an art dealer one time about Beckwith, and he would say, well, I have an expert in American art. He said, if you want to talk to her, she might know something about him, type thing. So I talked to her, and her and I were talking about Beckwith, and just out of the blue, she said, his scrapbooks are at the historical site in New York City, right? I mean, I didn't ask her about them, nothing, just come out of the blue.
What?
Yeah. I mean, I had instances like maybe a half dozen times where information about Beckwith we literally dropped into my lap.
Talk about synchronicity.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I couldn't find him because this was a very important part of the investigation. I had his diaries. Now, I didn't think his scrapbooks would tell me anything I hadn't already seen, but by the same token, you don't want a major piece of evidence out there laying out here without you looking at it. So but I could not find where they were at. There was no, again, he was not a famous person at all, and so there was no record. Unfortunately, I found him. So I went to New York City to the historical site and reviewed his scrapbooks. Basically, just more confirmed the things I'd seen in the repression. It's all later. There was nothing in there that they would say anything against anything I'd seen. Just more confirmation. But anyway, so I decided maybe my wife's right. Maybe she's right. Maybe I need to just keep this quiet and not say a word about it. So I decided just to file away and forget about it. Well, right after that, I was talking. So I've been a writer my whole life. So I was going back. I was writing an article for magazines at this time. So I was writing an article about line of duty deaths for police officers. We just had a police officer killed just a few weeks before that. So I interviewed a captain, a good friend of mine. She was the first person at the scene of the murder.
Okay.
Police captain. I talked to her. We're talking about what happened. I'm taking notes for my article, and she's talking about this out of body experience she had at the murder scene. And she was standing there overlooking at me, realizing he was dead. And she said, suddenly I was floating above him, and I could see myself down there. You know, he said I was thinking I was getting him CPR, but of course it was too late. He was dead. He'd been shot in the chest with a shotgun. And she said, but I could see myself. I'm floating above. And that, you know, that really startled me because
So she's telling you this, and you must have
yeah,
been like,
I'm
okay.
thinking. The thing is, I had never heard of police officers had paranormal experiences.
Uh huh.
So I mean, I didn't know what to think about it, but I just wrote it down. So maybe 2 weeks after that, I'm in federal court testifying on a case. A couple of officers and I are over there talking. There's another captain there. He's going to testify with me, and we're just talking and everything. And he tells about an out-of-body experience he had. Well,
Oh,
he was.
you're kidding.
Well, there was a robbery. He said there was a robbery at a grocery store. And him and his partner were next door.
Uh
So
huh.
they run over to the grocery store, and there's about 5 guys there with guns, and they start shooting at him. They back out into the parking lot, and the guys are following him out shooting. He said all of a sudden he saw himself floating above the parking lot, and he said he thought he had died, and his soul was just looking how
Right.
he died. Yeah, way he died. And again, this was two stories, and nobody ever said anything. I had been in the police department probably 25 years by this time, and nobody ever said anything about this. And so I started doing some
Oh
discreet
my
inquiries around the police
God.
department, and I found quite interesting enough, police officers I never had, but police officers as a group have a lot of paranormal experiences.
Yeah, I think a
And
lot of them do what that they keep quiet about.
yeah, they don't want to take people think they're crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
interesting enough, I found most of these experiences happen under tremendous stress,
Yes.
particularly out of body experiences. They happen out of stress. So
Yes.
I found a number of cases around the police department of police officers who had paranormal experiences, and that's what I say, Bob. That's silly. You don't need to keep this to yourself. Come on, these people have shared it. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you share it? And that's why I basically decided to sit down and write the book. But you know, the only difference being, and my wife pointed this out many times to me, these guys are shared amongst police officers, and they know you're not going to tell anybody else. They didn't share this with the general public,
Right.
but you're going to be shared with the general public. But I don't know. Too many bizarre things like the painting of the Hunchback woman thing happened that I thought I probably shouldn't. I don't think I meant to keep my mouth shut on this. And again, like I said, information kept getting dropped in my lap. And
Mm-hmm.
interesting enough, little bizarre coincidences happened during this whole time. I mean, each one in and of itself would just be a little bizarre coincidence, but you had a dozen. For example, when my book is getting ready, I had finished my book, and I didn't realize the art world is pretty small, and everybody knows what's going on in the art world. And I got a call from a lady. She worked at the Berry Hill Gallery in New York City, and said, "I understand you're doing research on James Carroll Beckwith." I said, "Yeah, I've done some research on him." She didn't know what my book was going to be about, by the way. She just knew I'd write a book about him, not what it was about. And she said, "Well, good." She says, "I want to know have you found any paintings in private collections, because our art gallery is having an exhibition of his work." And interesting enough, the day the exhibition opened was the very same day my book was going to be published. They both came out at the same
What?
time. And I asked her at the moment, I says, "Why are you having an exhibition of Beckwith's work? It's never sold for any value. Most paintings mostly go for $4,000 or $5,000. I mean, most he ever gets now. Occasionally you can find more, but most of his paintings go for four. They're not that good, 4 or 5 thousand." And I asked her, I said, "Why would you have an exhibition of Beckwith's work? He's never been famous, never really." She said, "I don't read." She said, "It just seemed like a good idea. They'd been in planning for a couple of years, even though neither of us knew about each other." But interesting enough, I went to the exhibit in New York City when it happened.
Oh, you did.
I went and seen it. You know how many paintings they sold in a month? They absorbed for a month. They didn't sell a single painting, not one. They had this exhibit for a month, didn't sell a single painting. It's not that he's simply not that good. But all these things kept happening. You know, these little bizarre coincidences.
That is like,
Yeah, but and see, each one in and of itself would be nothing but
right.
just interesting little coincidence. But they keep adding up. When you have a dozen or so of them, it's like,
Exactly.
no, there's
Exactly.
something else happening. And that's basically why I decided to write the book. I finally decided, no, Bob, too many things happening. I think this book is meant to be, or you wouldn't be given all this information. I mean, again, information simply dropped into my lap.
And what happened? You said that during that year that you were writing, you had several experiences that just lasted throughout that one year. What
Yeah.
what happened?
Another interesting coincidence I had. Again, Beckwith in his diary says that he was born at 9 in the morning while his
Okay.
dad was out hunting with a friend.
Okay.
So anyway, while I'm writing this book, a friend knew I was writing it, and knew what I was writing about. Well, he knew a lady who was an astrologer. Now, I don't believe in astrology. Believe me, I don't. Of course, I get, again, you have to prove this. You have to hit me, have the boot up for proof, or I was accepting thing. But anyway, he told this lady who was an astrologer what I was doing. So she called me, And she said, well, you know what time Beck was born? I said, yeah, his diary said he was born at 9 in the morning while his dad was out hunting with a friend. She said, what time? He said, hey, I got his day, September, he was born September 23rd, 1852 at 9 in the morning. Now, what time day were you born? She wanted to run astrological charts of us together type thing. I
Yes.
thought, I thought, oh man. But I bet this was a friend of a friend. So I said, oh, hey, it's like, I'll check and find out. So I got my birth certificate out, but it doesn't say what time you were born.
Right.
And so I started asking him, but the only one left at this time who was around then was my mother's sister, my aunt. Everybody else is dead and gone. They were all gone. The only one left, again, was my aunt. And so I called my aunt and says, I said, do you know what time I was born? She said, yeah, you were born at 9 o'clock. Your dad was out hunting with your uncle.
Are you? Oh
No,
no.
see,
Oh no.
it's those little things. Again,
That's not a little.
in and of itself, it's an interesting little coincidence. It's just an interesting little coincidence. But come on.
What did you do when you heard your aunt tell you that?
I mean, say again, after a while, I wasn't surprised anymore. After a while,
That's
these things
incredible.
keep happening. You're not surprised anymore. It's kind of creepy, to tell you the truth. It's kind of
But that's
creepy
incredible.
because you don't know where this is coming from. You don't think where is all this coming from? I don't know.
The
But
truth
but
is,
again,
there's
it's
no
one
way
of
you
those
can
things where
manipulate that. I guess is my point. There's no way that you, considering you're, of course, you know what day you were born, but then you find out what time that it coincides with his day. Yeah, come on. It's and the circumstances.
yeah, but it's so. But the interesting part is a lot of these. Oh, gosh, I've had at least a dozen coincidences like this, or probably more happened during the time. But once the book is published, they stopped. I haven't had a single thing happen since. Nothing.
Wow.
It's kind of like, okay, you're done. There's no point to them anymore, is there? I think these are all pointing to me that maybe the book needs to be written. They just keep pointing me toward writing the book. But after the book is written, since then, not a single thing, nothing has happened at all.
Wow.
And I think, like I said, the door was shut. Apparently, I think I had done my part. My part was to investigate because this investigation took me over a year. Like I said, a very to do all these things to get the. And I had to use my police officer skills because, as a matter of fact, I was reading there's a book called Who Was Who in American Painting.
Okay.
And it said, I pulled it up about Beckwith and had a little bit of it. He said he died of a suicide. And I thought, I didn't see this or anything, and I didn't see this in the progression. So I called New York City. I called the medical examiner in New York City and told him who was this Captain Bob Snow, head of homicide in that police department. I said, I want you to check something for me. Now, the ordinary person, they wouldn't have done this.
Oh, of course not.
And I told him, I said, I have a guy, he died. I don't know what he died of. And so he didn't even, the funny thing, you think he'd want to know why it was 1917. But I guess in my position, he didn't say, no problem. So he called me back the next day and said he died of endocarditis. It was just a typo or mistake in the book.
Wow.
Yeah, he died of endocarditis. And he actually sent me, I'll tell you, he mailed me a copy of his death certificate so I could see it. And that's, by the way, another interesting part of this story. That's how I knew Beckwith was buried. But they had on the death certificate said he's buried in Kensico Cemetery, which is in New York. It's in Valhalla, New York, which is a suburb of New York City.
Okay.
So while I was in New York City doing research to this book, I tried to find the places Beckwith had been, where he lived and all this, but everything had changed since 1970. There were none of the buildings were left, nothing was there anymore type thing. But anyway, I knew that he was buried in Kensico, which is just north of New York City. And I thought, when I was there, wouldn't it be cool to visit your own grave? Would that be, yeah, well, I mean, come on. How many people
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, but at the same time, it was kind of creepy too. Do you really want to go there type thing? So anyway, the last day I caught a train and went up to Valhalla, New York, where Kensico Cemetery is. And I decided, I wanted to go visit the grave. So, but Kensico Cemetery, by the way, it's a beautiful, beautiful cemetery. But it's a huge cemetery.
Okay.
And so I finally I went to the office and drew a map where it was. And so I started going to the grave. And when I got within maybe 10 feet of the grave, I had this terrible, terrible anxiety attack.
Really?
Now, yeah, terrible. I could feel my heart. You could feel your heart pushing against your rib cage. It was beating so hard.
Wow.
And I would, and the funny thing, when I was first got a police officer, you run a lot of scary situations. And I had this problem when I first got a police officer. I'd get really in a scary situation. My left knee would start shaking. It was just, I don't know what it was, but because police officers going a lot, because especially when you first start out, because you don't have enough experience to know what to do type thing. So you're kind of scared. And I walk up to Becca's grave, and my heart is beating. I'm sweating like crazy. My left knees are shaking. And I had no idea why. I mean, come on. I kept trying to reach myself. Bob, there's nothing here. there couldn't even be in ghosts because you're that if there's any soul, it's in you. So there's nothing
Right.
but a dead body. I could not stop the anxiety attack until I walked away. When I walked away from the grave, it stopped. But I wanted to get a picture of myself at the grave, just to
Okay.
prove it, but to prove I wasn't scared. So anyway, there was a man there was a couple guys doing maintenance close by, and I asked him, "Would you take a picture of me at the gravesite?" And so when I walked back, the minute I walked back, the anxiety attack come back. And I mean, it was just awful. My heart being so hard, I was worried about maybe having a heart attack there. And I was just sweating and my knee was shaking. And I waited. I let this guy take a picture of me. God, I didn't think how he's ever going to get it done. But then once I was at the grave, it stopped. Now I don't have a clue what that means. I
Okay.
don't have a clue. Why would I have that? I don't. People ask me, well, why? I don't have a clue.
Okay.
I really don't have a clue why that would happen. But I had this terrible, terrible anxiety attack when I got close. Every time I get close to the grave. Now,
Wow.
somebody who had experience in these sort of things to explain it. I have no idea why.
Okay. And you were, because I was about to say, you must have. So once you got there, once you actually saw it, then that's it. It subsided.
Once I left the gravesite, once I left, got about 10 or 15 feet away from the gravesite, it went away.
So when
I,
you were there, though, when you looked at it,
when I
you were
was standing at
still
the grave,
under, you were anxious.
terrible, terrible anxiety. But like I said, I walked over to ask the maintenance man to take a picture. It was gone. But then I went back and stood next to the grave so he could picture me next to the grave, and then it came back.
Wow.
Now again, I don't have any experience in this field, so I can't explain what that meant. But I don't know if you're not. I guess you're not supposed to do that for some reason. I don't
It's
have any.
well, it's let's face it. Think about it. You had gathered all these things that you couldn't discount as being coincidence, and I had to have some type of feeling of being surreal. Think about it.
Yeah, but why anxiety? I don't know why. Because it was like like I used to be when you were the first police officer and you got to go into a
Hmm.
warehouse hunting for a burglar, a dark warehouse. You're kind of scared. It's kind of nervous. Well, the same with this. You had this terrible anxiety of just your heart's palpitating, you're sweating, and your knees shaking, and you're trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
What could
So
be
it
here?
was
What could be here? Be scary. There's just I mean, there couldn't be any soul. The soul. His soul is in your body, and so
right.
there's nothing left there. There couldn't even be a ghost left there because everything's in your body. I don't know. I couldn't explain it. I just know while I was there, when I ever approach the grave, I get a terrible anxiety attack. So
So
that was just another interesting aspect of the book.
right.
I don't understand why.
Yeah. You couldn't logic it away. You had
I couldn't figure a logical reason for it. I just knew that it happened. Now,
that.
as you might imagine, this didn't go well at the police department. When the book came out, it did not go well.
Oh, it didn't.
No, no. Police work is a very old school profession. Police officers are very conservative, old school people.
Hmm.
And as my wife predicted, police captains don't go around espousing this sort of thing. They just don't. It did not go well. No, it didn't.
Oh boy. So what happened? They what? They
Well,
were.
basically, I was in charge of homicide. When I took over homicide, we'd had the most murders in history of police department the year before. They put me there, and I was there for 6 years. Every year I was there, the murders went down. The assault
Okay.
rate went up, the murders went down. As a matter of fact, the last year there, after the book came out, they asked the murders at the lowest point in 20 years,
Hmm.
and they basically transferred me out of homicide because of the book. Even though the
Wow.
murders were the lowest rate, and we had an 83% clearance rate. Matter of fact, they said they put me into a job where they put people who were getting ready to retire. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
that
right.
was
You had been
that,
around long enough to figure it out. Like, okay,
that was
I
the
know I'm
message.
here.
That was the message I was supposed to get.
Uh huh.
Yeah, that was a message I was supposed to get. But anyway, so I basically my career in the police department ended right there. It really did. It pretty well went to an end there. Just my wife had predicted it would. It pretty well went off the cliff. But again, people ask me if I have regrets about it. I really don't have regrets about it. I don't. I feel like this had to be done.
It
This
sounds
was
like it.
a story that had to be told. There was too much information given to me. Too many strange things happened that I can't explain for me not to tell this story. And so, people ask me if I regret. I don't regret telling. No, it was just what happened to the police department was just some bad consequences of it. And
Right.
it kind of hurt my writing career too. Up
Really.
until yeah, oh yeah, because I wrote mostly police procedural books about SWAT teams, self protection,
Right. Yeah, I saw you have one about
homicide
cults
investigation.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I had written a lot of books up this time, but I think once the book came out, the publishers didn't want to take me serious any longer, as a writer of police procedural books. And it was 5 years after the book came out before I get another contract.
Really?
Yeah, because simply nobody would take me seriously long as a police writer. But
That is
again,
incredible.
but
But you
again,
know what? I see where yeah.
I mean, you can understand the publisher's point of view. Where's this person's credibility? Look what he's writing about now,
Yeah, it's
what
like
he
that's
was
so
writing
out
about.
there.
So but again, do I regret that? No. It's just I guess one of the consequences you have to bear. If you do something like this, you have to be ready to get ready to accept the consequences when they happen. And
Mhm.
that's what I did. I knew, and I like my wife. She didn't have to tell me. I knew what could happen, but I could not let this stuff be kept. I couldn't keep this
Right.
stuff hidden. I really couldn't. It was just too much stuff was given to me, too important. I thought to keep it
Yes,
hidden and not tell about it. And so
like
I don't really regret it. Not really.
but think about it. That moment when she regressed you, that she's telling you to go in the light, but you stop and you look through that window and you see the portrait of the hunchback woman. That was the one thing, almost like you said, I need to see this in order to be able to follow back and find what came after that, because that was your reference point, in other words. You didn't have a name at that
Well,
point.
actually, no. Actually, through the window I saw it was a still life, and I never did find out. By the way,
No?
no, I never. No, actually, when I looked through the window of the mansion, it was a still life.
Okay, I'm
But
sorry. I
yeah,
thought it was the
yeah,
hunchback lady.
no, the hunchback woman I saw in the studio while I was painting it. But
Oh,
I never,
okay, 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 okay.
yeah, I never did find it. Of course, there's too many still lifes around. And what happened? A lot of Beckwith paintings have been bought by artists, and they took for the canvas and the frame. And they painted over the painting and put theirs on top of it, type thing.
Oh,
Because he spent a lot of money on frames. He liked to frame his paintings very well. So I think a lot of his paintings were sold for the frame and the canvas. Then
mm-hmm.
you basically paint over and put another painting on top of it.
So who knows how many hidden Beckwith paintings are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or I may have been destroyed just for the frame. But again, his stuff is not that good. It's not worth a lot of money. It's not that good.
But that is so interesting because, see, that's the thing. And that's, I guess, where you were in luck because even though he wasn't, like, I know what you were saying, famous, but at least there was some type of documentation. Most importantly, his own diary. Like you said, he was so meticulous about that.
Fortunately, like I said, he wasn't anybody famous, but he kept his diaries simply because he was a kind of like a social butterfly during his time, and he knew everyone. He was good friends with Mark Twain. He was good friends with Theodore Roosevelt. He was good friends with Claude Monet, the painter. He knew Sarah
Wow.
Bernhardt. He knew Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, matter of fact, they were such good friends. Oscar Wilde stayed in his apartment when he came to
Wow.
America. I mean, Beckwith knew everyone. Beckwith knew everyone who was famous during the late 1800s, early 1900s, and his diaries contain little anecdotes about these people.
Now, let me ask
It,
you something, Robert. How did you get into writing, considering that you were a policeman? How did you start doing that?
I never wanted to be a policeman. That thought never occurred to me growing up. The only thing I've ever wanted to be since my earliest memories is a writer.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're
When I
kidding,
was a little
really?
boy, people would ask me, I was 4 or 5, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always say a writer.
Uh-huh.
You know how people, they pat you on the head. That's like saying I want to be president.
Yeah.
Everybody pat you on the head and say, yeah, that's nice, that's nice.
Okay.
I never really had any desire ever to be a policeman. I just kind of fell into it by accident. I was in the military during the Vietnam War. And
Okay.
after I was discharged, I got out and I needed a job. I mean, being a writer is nice, but anybody who's tried writing knows you never make much money at first. You don't make enough
Mm-hmm.
to live on. You certainly don't make enough to live on. So you have to have another job. And my
Exactly.
brother was a police officer at this time. He had been on the police department for about a year. And he said, Bob, come on down. He said, because the Vietnam War was still going on. I got out in 1968.
Okay.
It went on to 72. So there was no male. There weren't that many
Right.
healthy males available to
So
join the police
they
department.
were looking for
So
bodies.
me being an Army discharged veteran, they were looking
Yeah.
for me, so I got down there and I was taken on immediately. And
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't mean to stay there that long. I meant to just stay long enough to get some money together to kind of tide me over during my writing career. But police work is kind of like heroin. You take the first dose of it, you're stuck for life. You really
Wow.
are. Police work is very addictive. It, it's police officers are most of them are adrenaline junkies. They are adrenaline junkies. You love the surge you get from the adrenaline of doing police work.
Well, but you even took that experience and all that knowledge, and this is what
Exactly.
you wrote about.
Exactly. And also I realized, it didn't take me long to realize, not only did I love police work because of the excitement, and you're doing good. You're doing something good for the community and the excitement. I also realized, gee, this is going to give me all kind of material to write on.
Great
Because
material.
every one of my books, I have 18 books in print. Every one's
Mm-hmm.
about police work. I have over 100 articles and short stories published. They're all about
Okay.
police work. Yeah, it's the only thing I know. So you publish what you know, and so it was a good thing to be able to be in the police work because not only did it give me a good paying job, steady job,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gave me a whole lot of subject material,
I
a whole lot
bet.
of subject.
I bet. Yeah, it's like I can see because I was looking at the titles of some of your books and I see what you mean as far as the book about the reincarnation being totally diametrically
Yeah,
opposed to the subject matter.
I've almost said mostly my last few books all been my last three books have been true crime, simply
Okay.
because after a while. I wrote about SWAT teams, sex crime investigation, finding missing
Mm-hmm.
persons. After a while, you run out of interesting subjects about police work. You really do. There's
Right.
so many areas of police work the public wants to read about. So after a while, I started running out. So I started writing true crime. My last three books have been about true crimes.
Okay.
And again, it's police work. It's cases I've been involved in,
Right.
either peripherally or in some way, and so I write about them.
Well, you have that insider's view that even somebody
Exactly.
is never going to get. Yeah, they could interview a million people, but still, you can't. It doesn't replace somebody that's actually been doing it for as long as you did it.
And it doesn't replace you being at the scene of that. You actually being
Yes.
at the scene of a murder or a
Yes.
crime. You can tell little details that no one's going to get but you. So it worked out. Actually, being in police work, I know I fell into by accident. Turned out to be very fortuitous because it really did give me some great subject matter to write about. And investigating backwards was a very difficult job. You had to have someone who has investigative skills to know where to look for these things, where to look, and what to do to investigate. And I halfway think as part of my life. That's why kind of why I was picked to do this job. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of feel like I kind of feel like I was picked to do this,
There you
and I
go.
kind of feel like probably the reason why because I had experience as an investigator.
Yeah, and in other words, yes, I understand completely. You had that investigative, like, okay, where do I go with this, or how do I follow back? Like what you said, even when you started, that you started taking notes as far as, let me, when you were going through those books in the libraries, trying to find out who this person was. So, yeah, you had investigative techniques that you used.
Exactly. Yes.
That, one of the things I think that's also interesting is that you went through the transition as far as crime and investigation from pre DNA to now that everything is DNA, that whole forensic thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I imagine that as far as crime investigation and homicides and things have changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, DNA probably the greatest new thing in police work since fingerprints.
hmm.
Because you cannot commit a personal crime on someone without leaving DNA.
Yeah.
You simply can't. You can't. Believe me, you can't be a rapist. Even though rapists a lot of times want to wear a condom, it doesn't stop DNA being left behind. You
Hmm.
really DNA is a great tool for police officers. It's the greatest invention probably since fingerprints for identifying suspects because we have a lot of cold cases where there was DNA material, but
Right. Yeah, I've seen that.
the
That.
time the case happened, there was no DNA. So basically, we don't ever. If you have a murder, you never throw the evidence away ever. The case is
Right.
not solved. You never throw the evidence away. So DNA can be used and stored for 20, 30, 40 years. Can still be used. Because there have been a number of cases where people have found DNA from 30, 40-year-old cases and be able to type it and pinpoint a certain person as the culprit.
Right. Right. That's what I've seen. That years afterwards, they've made a match
Yes,
uh, to either the person's in jail or sometimes even dead, but they've actually been able to match the DNA.
it's a great tool.
And I'm thinking also for prosecution, that's pretty irrefutable. Like,
Yeah,
how do you get around that?
yeah. It's a little hard if you have a rape victim with your DNA on her. You're
Mm-hmm.
saying I wasn't there. That's not going to fly.
Exactly.
It's not
Like,
going to fly.
well, yeah, it's one of those things where it's good, and also, a lot of people that say, look, it can exonerate a lot of people as well. Like, if you said it wasn't there and your DNA doesn't
Yeah.
match, guess what?
Anybody knows anything about the Project Innocence? That's what they do. They have
Right.
exonerated over 2,000 people who
Yeah.
were convicted, mostly of sex crimes.
Mm-hmm.
People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that when a person is a victim of sex crime, you're just so traumatized. You really can't identify the person. But
Right.
but they place a guy under arrest. They say the police are convinced this is him, and now you're convinced. But it's not really
Yes,
so. And
exactly.
believe me, eyewitness testimony is not that reliable. Eyewitness testimony is not nearly as reliable as physical evidence.
No, well,
Because
that's what I'm thinking. Something like this is like this is not subject to memory or interpretation or
no,
lighting or
yeah,
whatever.
it's hard evidence. Yeah, because I've had times where you interview three different people who witnessed the exact same thing, and you get three different stories. It's like,
Yeah.
this is the same incident, and people are telling three different stories from three different viewpoints who actually witnessed the same incident. So, DNA, I mean, eyewitness testimony is nice, but physical evidence is much better.
And I'm even thinking it even you don't think about exoneration post conviction. I'm thinking even at the investigative
Oh,
level.
oh yeah,
Okay.
that'll happen. That happens a lot of times in police work.
Yeah. It's like,
You
hey, your DNA doesn't
committed this
match.
murder.
That's it. You're not
Your head right for this person. Then you're right. He said, okay, time to pull back, start looking the other way. Yeah, that
exactly.
happens.
Exactly.
Not the DNA, but a lot of other. Sometimes you start off with this preconceived idea. You know who the culprit is, but the evidence
Mhm.
does not prove it. It's kind of like I did with Beckwith. I start off knowing I can prove this wrong. I can prove this wrong.
Right.
And I kept going and going. The evidence turned me 180 degrees back the other way.
Yeah.
You
Right.
realize, nope, this is not the way this investigation is going to go. It's going to go the other way.
Right, exactly. But
Yeah.
at least you were open-minded to follow it back through
Well,
even when you weren't getting what you were looking
yeah,
for.
come on. After a while, I mean, no matter how convinced you were of something, if all the evidence points the other direction, you got to say, wait a minute, I'm wrong. This is not what happened. This is what happened. You have to look at where's the evidence point. All right, the evidence didn't point where you thought it was going to point. It points the opposite direction. And that happens a lot of times in criminal cases. You just know subject A is the person, and boy, the evidence points to subject B, and you the person who you at least suspected. And
Yes, well, that's exactly what I mean. As far as when as far as in the investigative, and the same thing. Okay, this is definitely not the person, so there's somebody else out there that
that's right.
should be
That's
the
right. You got
suspect.
yep,
Even the least likely, in other words.
yep, quite often.
Let me ask you, Robert. After this, and now obviously you're not a police officer as far as active.
No,
You're not
I'm
going to
retired.
be put in the. Have you ever considered doing any more regressions or anything else with reincarnation?
Well, no, because my point being, if I went back to do another Beckwith one, what would be the point? There, I read every day of his life from 19 to 65. So how would I know anything I saw was really true or was a part of the diaries I read? I mean, I read every diary of his diaries and that his little small autobiography. So my point is, you really couldn't be sure anything you saw about him would be true.
Well,
And then
no, I'm
I,
not even talking about Beckwith
oh,
because if you go through
I
reincarnation, you were somebody else besides Beckwith before.
yeah, but there are all these things for super history. You can't prove them. My
I
point
know
is,
that's the thing. It's
my
difficult.
point is, if you can't prove them, to me, there's no point. If you can't prove it, you really don't know if you really can't prove it's not imagination. I mean,
Yeah.
I told you I went back to Dr. Griffith the second time. I saw myself as a monk. I saw myself as a Chinese warrior, but they were all way far back in history. So
Right. There's no way to
there's
you
no
can
reference
validate it.
point. So how do you know they're
Yes.
really true? You
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
I tell my point about any regression, any regression I did back with again would really be pointless, simply because I know about everything. The thing about a diary is I went through every day of his
Yeah.
life from 19 to 65.
Yeah.
So anything I came up with, how do you? It's been. Then you say it's been tainted, but now because I know too much about him. For example, I've talked to a number of people about since this time about regression, and a
Mm-hmm.
person said they were regressed to some famous person, but you find out they've always been obsessed about this person
Right.
and read
Yes.
every
Exactly.
book there is about this person. Now,
Exactly.
I suppose you could use the opposite argument that they were obsessed by him, read about him because it was them. But by the same token, anything they say about the person is tainted because they know this person. They've read every book about this person, everything there is written about this person. So now they do regression and say they are this person. How do you prove that? I mean,
Well, exactly. And that's the thing that, like, for example, one time I regressed this lady. She was a friend of a friend, one of those things, and she asked me, and she was one of these people that she was fascinated with, like that antebellum, Gone with the Wind kind of thing, like, oh, I'm sure I lived during that time, and this hoop skirts and the whole 9 yards. And I said, okay. I said, well, let's see, let's take it. And, I regressed her. As a matter of fact, I regressed her over at her house on her sofa. And, but of course, no suggestions, nothing. It was like, I took her back and I said, what do you see? And then, turns out she saw herself as a Greek fisherman, as a man.
oh,
And she says the opening scene, she was like, you could tell she saw herself mending a net. And later on, she like you said, she could smell the sea. She could smell the sea, the salt, the sea salt. Like at one point, she said she could even hear the gulls, the seagulls. We went through the whole, and then at the end, I took her, and this was, he was like, when I say fisherman, it was like one of these boats where you could fit four people in it, and you cast your nets out, and then you come back. And at the end, I took her to the point of her death, and or his death or whatever, and he drowned. He got caught in a storm out in sea, and but he stayed, and because he was like the captain, this was his boat kind of deal. And when she came out of it, she was totally speechless. She says, "I've never have no affinity, no interest, nothing having to do with Greek or Greek fishermen or anything." And what convinced her was how vivid it was. In other words, it didn't fulfill any of the expectations that she had as to what she thought she was going to see or experience or go back to.
Well, I felt the same way. I didn't see myself as a caveman, an artist, or an altar girl. Those
Right,
three,
exactly.
if I'd had to pick what I thought past lives were, none of them three would have been even the top 100. So,
Right.
like you said, I think everybody who would do this it's quite often stunned by what they find because it's not what they picture themselves as.
No, no. And I asked her, I said at the end, I said, what was your regret? One of the regrets she had was that because his adult son, her adult son was on the boat and drowned as well. And it was one of those where, like, in other words, he didn't care about losing his life. His biggest regret was that he couldn't save his son. They were just caught out at sea in a bad storm. Um, and but so when you were describing that moment where you were smelling and
Yeah.
seeing things and everything, I knew exactly what you were talking about as far as when you go from sometimes even observing to going into being, like you said, you were talking in first person. And yeah, that's what. But yeah, it's very unexpected. Some people have these ideas of what they're going to see or what they're going to experience just because they like whatever. And a lot of times, like what you said, it's romanticized where somewhere
Sure.
along the line you took that information and you became fascinated with it. But that's it.
That's it. But I'm always, I also find I'm always suspicious of people who want to claim they are famous people.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
obviously, if you're somebody famous, there's going to be a reincarnation of you. But what's the odds that everybody you talk to was somebody famous? Because for
none.
everybody famous, there's at least 10 million people who are not famous, who are not simply nobodies. And that's
Yeah,
always
exactly.
concerned me when people want to be famous. I'm always a little suspicious of that. Always a little bit suspicious. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure that George Washington has to have reincarnation somewhere, but the odds of people being it are pretty slim.
I'll tell you what, one thing I've discovered, Robert, throughout the years is most people, what they fear the most is being ordinary. And if
Yeah,
you're ordinary in this life, at least I don't want to be ordinary in my
you want to be a super,
in
super
my
ordinary
past
somewhere
life.
else. Yeah,
So, yes, I unfortunately it's like, and I mean, as somebody that's done, I mean, I consider myself a subconscious behaviorist. I work a lot with as far as our subconscious dictates what we do and etc. Unfortunately, that fear of being ordinary, most of the happiest people are ordinary people. Most
exactly.
people,
And again, for every famous person or every extraordinary person, you got to have millions and millions of ordinary people to carry the world along.
yes,
While people are doing these things they do to make them great, the people who got to plant the crops, got to take the
yes,
crops to market. You got to milk the cows. You got to work in the factory. Somebody's got to build the cars in the factories.
yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of ordinary people, and along with it, to support the extraordinary people.
Yes,
But
exactly. And I mean, and there's nothing wrong, don't get me wrong, with fame or whatever it is that you, but a lot of people equate being ordinary with being like unhappy. And I'm like, nah,
uh,
that sometimes very ordinary people live pretty happy lives
yeah.
considering, the human condition, but, it is what it is. But anyway, Robert, thank you so, so much
Oh,
for
well,
spending this
thank you.
time. It has been wonderful. I
Well,
loved your
thank you for having me.
story. And believe me, I can truly appreciate what you were describing. Um, and are you working on any books right now?
Yeah, yeah. I'm writing. I'm writing true crime now, so that's what I'm doing. I'm working on another true
Can
crime
you
book.
can you can you talk about what?
Not yet. I don't like to talk about books while I'm
Oh,
working on them.
okay, okay.
I find if you talk too much about your books while you're working on them, You lose your enthusiasm.
Okay. Well, anyway,
You
I'm going
really
to
do.
have a link to your website here on the credits of the show. So if anybody
All right.
wants to go and visit your site as far as for the books, and I believe your books are also available on Amazon, right?
They're available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the place. Yeah, they're
All
available
over the place.
all over the
Okay.
place. Yeah. So anyway, would you also send me an email? Let me know when this is going to be on.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I will send that to you. But again, thank you so very much. It has been wonderful.
Thank you for having
Ha-
me on.
Likewise. Have a great weekend, okay?
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Wow. Something to really wrap your head around that one. See? See? You know, here's this one. Talk about the least likely person that was ever going to believe in reincarnation or none of that. And he has written a book about it, folks. And you saw the slides there. I think, and I say it again, I mean, I'm very familiar with regression, with reincarnation, and, if you want to use it as a tool for addressing different issues. And I was, I could, I wouldn't want to bust out laughing, but when he was like being so resistant at the end when she's trying to bring him down and he's like not wanting to see, and that's all based on your suggestibility. Everybody's different. But I was like I could see that his personality would be very resistant to being regressed. Even though people are hypnotized and they don't realize they're hypnotized, but he was taking his cues. And I have tried. I've worked with police officers, and one time I was trying to. I'm gonna. It wasn't. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't for regression. It was just I was gonna. Let me hypnotize you so you'll see what it's like. And I do that sometimes with people that have never been hypnotized before, just so they can experience it, so that they can see you don't fall asleep, you don't forget it, nobody takes over you, remembering, you just really relax, but you're aware, totally 100% aware what's going on. And I see him, and I'm going to go get my gun, and I go, your gun? It's like, where are you going? Where do you think you're going? It's like, all I'm going to do is relax you. But my point being that depending on your personality, everybody's different, but there's a lot of fear and resistance and like what do you think I'm going to do? Like transport you to another dimension? I can't do that. So that's why when he was saying how she had to try really hard, once she got past the induction and she's trying to get him to see, also because of his, again, his suggestibility, that's he can't visualize, he has to imagine things, and he kept using that word. But anyway, guys, I thought it was fascinating. I really thought it was fascinating because I have seen many times what he described happen to clients. Luckily, he was able, which, God, those were extraordinary circumstances, I'm telling you, to basically have a way of going back, and I have to give credit where credit is due. That information maybe having gone to a person who did not have his tenacity and his investigative skills, they wouldn't have known what to do with it, or they wouldn't have gone through all the things that he went through. Yes, there were things like when he went to New Orleans that he saw, absolutely. But that tenacity of going back, remember, like he said, this was prior to internet. This is when you had to do the legwork. Library, going back through every book, searching, searching, searching. Not everybody was going to do that. As a matter of fact, the bulk of people would never. So, again, but again, he had somebody that there was something, maybe not a lot, but there was something, and of course that he was a diary keeper. Like, yay, helped him verify, validate things that he had seen or felt like he said when he was under regression. So it was almost like I want to say, for lack of a better word, it was almost like a pact, a soul pact that he had. I mean, it could be interpreted a million ways. Like he said, he was always like a painter, but not really a great painter. But at the end of his life, he was writing, and who knows, maybe at the end when he started writing, he had maybe come upon the realization, hey, I could be a great writer, but here you go. You get cut off at the pass because you're ill and you die. So it was almost like, think about it. Here you are, you go off, you become a painter. You're rubbing elbows with all these outstanding artists of different things, whether they're painters or actors or whatever, writers. And you're going along and you're a painter, but and then all of a sudden at the end, you kind of realize, wait, I'm a little bit off here. What I really like is to write. Think about it. This man has been writing his diary for how many years? What, 40 or something years? I mean, meticulous, which is not the same as fiction writing, but still, it's almost like he had it under his nose and he didn't go forward with it, or maybe it was just economics. Let's face it, you've trained in New York and Paris to become a painter, and this is where you're making some type of money, where all of a sudden to switch gears, but or maybe not. Like I said, maybe at the end when he's really ill and he starts writing, he realizes, oh my God, this is what I was meant to do. I'm a writer, not a painter, and then you die, or you become so ill that you can't go any further with it. So think about it. What's his in his next incarnation? He gets a job. Like he said, he had always wanted to be a writer all along. Like this is like, and he almost like falls into a job that number one guaranteed him income. Okay. Plus gave him a big source for writing. Okay. And it was almost like I can fulfill that wish that I had, that of making the right choice. But maybe on a soul level, he realized for me to really um, to fulfill this, I need to be able to do something that where I can make a living for myself and my family. And it was like, I'm telling you, I thought that's so fascinating. That thing of the birth and his, come on, if that's incredible. That is incredible. But anyway, guys, check out his website, robertlsnow.com, I believe it is. Anyway, I'll have it on the. I'm gonna have it on the credits of the show, and of course, Robert L. Snow. You can go to Amazon and you can find all his books. I wish. I mean, obviously, I really wanted to talk to him about the reincarnation, but if you saw that slide that he put on there, he's got all these nonfiction police books about that one about the cults, and now that he's working on these for true crime. And like he said, he's written for a lot of magazine. He's written for Playboy, Esquire. He's not only has books, he's written articles. Fascinating, fascinating interview. So again, guys, thank you so much for being part of my audience. My true believers, go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, submit your story there at the tab. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter. That's where I live stream. Don't forget to get, whether you're looking at it on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, subscribe so that you get notifications of of when I release a new show. And again, thank you so very much for being part of my audience. You are all wonderful. Take care.